Welcome to On the Chain. This is Jeff here with co-host Chip.
What's
What
up,
is
guys?
going on? We got lots of great stuff to talk about tonight. We got some Ripple. We've got some XRP. The great thing is that this economic growth that's going on in the crypto space is never ending and always growing, and it's there to beat the fiat space every single day. A lot of great things that we want to talk about, crypto and digital asset related. So if you guys are ready to kick this thing off, and by the way, Coinbase just signed a contract with Homeland Security. So we're going to talk about that too.
That's
So
interesting, Jeff. Let's boil it all down. Let's uncover it and let's jump in. You got ready? Let's do
go.
this. Let's go.
Welcome to On the Chain.
Yeah, I think first off,
right.
what I'd like to get started with, Jeff, and obviously, if Joel and Travis join us, they were committed on the calendar, but sometimes people come in late. So if they join us, they'll come in and we'll start chatting. But I want to get to something pretty exciting. Now, for the longest time, we have talked about opening a brand new wallet with XRP. It used to cost 20 XRP. But there was an amendment put forward and some voting that went on and it got 80% consensus by the validator nodes. And now that 20 XRP to open a new wallet has now been reduced to 10 XRP, which is actually pretty cool. And to set up a trust line, it used to be 5 XRP. Now it's down to 2 XRP. So, and if you guys know, I mean, the trust lines have been going crazy. Everyone's dropping a new coin. There's a coin drop here, a coin drop there, everywhere a coin drop, and I mean, some may have value, some may not have value, but bottom line is what do you think about this amendment, though? You think this is a positive thing in a positive direction, Jeff?
Well, if you remember, I had made a video a while back about how XRP could potentially be unaffordable to most people. And it was based on the notion of a 20 XRP hold, to open up a wallet. So if you think about it from that perspective, think about how costly. You get XRP to $1, it was $20. Get it to $2, now all of a sudden it's 40. When it was $3 plus, it cost $60 just to open up a wallet. And it keeps growing and growing. Now, one of the reasons for the 20 XRP is to have a cost. It was a protective mechanism. So if they're now reversing that and it was voted on and they're making that adjustment, one of the things that had been talked about is that as they bring it down, then that means that there's something else going on in the space that is super exciting. There's some sort of growth mechanism that's taking place that allows them to have that cost reduction. And maybe there's some expectations of things getting ready to happen. But even, Chip, if you think about at $1, that's 20 cents. I mean, that's 20 XRP. Sorry, that's $20. It's $20. Every time you open up a new wallet, that gets a little costly.
Well, what about $100 XRP? Suppose it's $100 XRP, and now it's going to cost you $1,000 to open up a wallet. So at some point, this will probably be a trend as XRP starts rising. It'll be less and less. But the bottom line, it might even be drops at some point to set it up. I mean, the whole reason that it was enacted to begin with was to keep scammers, right? Because otherwise people just open up all these wallets on the ledger, and that's not a good thing. So you had to have some skin in the game, and this was one of the ways to achieve that. And when you look on that master chart, you see all of those wallets. You see so many of them that are just open wallets. They don't necessarily have a lot of XRP in there. So yep. And Notorious is in the house. What's up, Notorious? Always putting out those solid videos, and man, thank you for the super sticker, man. I really appreciate that.
And there's some great questions that are pouring in here. One from Jim D. Do we have to reset our wallets to free up the 10 XRP pre-reserve? So that's a good point. Does everyone get funded at this point? Do you get 10 of your XRP back? Is that going to happen? Hans Loaded was basically asking, the same thing. Do we know if we're getting that 10 from the initial 20 and you get 3 on the trust line from the 5? And then Devon here is saying, good amendment. Wallet should be free, right? Others don't cost, but maybe over time it'll come down. After all, it's tying up quite a lot of XRP.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I would say to address that, Devon, Steve, is the fact the reason is they wanted to keep scammers out. They wanted to have a little bit of skin in the game. That's why they made it 20 XRP. Yeah, when when it was 20 cents, it didn't take much, but you weren't going to go open up a bunch of spam wallets. You weren't just going to go open up, a million wallets on there unless you had some skin in the game. So that was the reason that they did it. They didn't want to just flood the XRPL ledger with all kinds of just wallets that just have 20 XRP in it, right? Or no XRP. And so at least you had to put 20 in there.
So Jim D is saying this, and again, this goes back to the premise of that video that I made, Chip, that it's going to be unaffordable because
It will
like you were saying, if it's 10, if it's 10 XRP, and let's see, it does scale to 100. That's $1,000 to open up a wallet. So Jim D is saying, 20 XRP at 10K is going to make XRP an elite coin only. And then, I look at some of this premise as well, and I can be completely off base with this, but you look at XRP, and the banks that are using the ledger and the asset, and as you grow into this payment space, utilizing XRP, it almost feels like, in my opinion, back then, same today, is that it really wasn't made for, the average consumer, to hold XRP. It's more of and obviously people do, but really it's meant to leverage, big volume flows of money. And when you're doing, big movements on the remittance payments and payments in general, maybe it wasn't meant to be in the hands of retail. And so then as it scales, it, reaches a point where, Jim's pointing out, it becomes an elite only, becomes a financial institution or bank or payment infrastructure only situation. I could be completely off base, but that was the original premise.
Yeah, I mean the original premise of having that 20 set up, and look, I mean, it's good. This is one of the things that I think is really strong when people look at a decentralized sort of a scenario of the XRP ledger, because when you have a consensus, when you have validator nodes running, and anybody can add a validator node if they want. The bottom line is that Ripple doesn't control the validator nodes. They control, I think it's less than 10%, maybe it's like 7%. But as more came online, this is the real value of the decentralization of XRP. You have to have an 80% consensus. You put an amendment forward, the validator nodes get to vote on it, and if you don't get 80% consensus, then something like this doesn't fly. It doesn't matter if David Schwartz thinks it's a great idea to lower it, or Jeff and I think it's a great idea. It should be 1 XRP. It doesn't matter. You have to put that amendment forward on the to the validators and let the voting happen. And voting happens over time when it reaches that consensus. And this is really the power of putting these kind of amendments forward and the decentralization of the XRP ledger.
That's right. Hey, I want to give a quick shout out to
Robert
Quinlan.
Super sticker. Quinlan. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that.
Appreciate that support coming all the way from Canada.
Canada, that's our neighbors to the north. And Jeff, I grew up right across that border there. I mean, I spent so much time in Canada as a kid and a youth. And of course, like I said, I always tell the story that my grandfather was the only one out of the entire family that immigrated, well, from Hungary first to Canada. And then he said, hey, man, I'm going to the States. And he was the only one. The rest of the family stayed up there. My original surname is still up there in use in Canada. So, the chip cars. So
it's awesome. So, hey, Jeff Beach brings up, what do you guys think about what's coming out from the Treasury this week on crypto regulation? And actually, we do have some articles and some points to cover on that today. So there's really, there's so much going on, just over the past couple of days. And, there's some interesting statements from Brian Armstrong, regarding, some of the things going on. There's some statements from Christine Lagarde. We can really get into a lot of these things, but the way I look at this, and we're seeing a lot of poignant articles that are coming out and highlighting the fact of this Ripple case and the significance of the Ripple case. And it seems like, man, if the validators are making some adjustments and some changes, what's going on behind the scenes right now with Ripple. Is there something that is happening? Are they preparing something? Is there something else that's getting ready to roll out in the payment space? Does it have anything to do with Songbird dropping with Flare? Is Flare up to something? Is there something else that's being orchestrated? So Chip, I think there's really, there's a lot of elements to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, there certainly are. I mean, there really are, and you're right. And timing, a lot has been uncovered by John Deaton and a lot of other, internet sleuths out there, looking at videos. And I think the general sort of pervasive nature behind all of them is, why did the SEC choose to go after someone like Ripple versus someone like Ethereum? Ethereum did an ICO. The XRP was gifted to Ripple. Ripple had already been created. So there's a lot of this going on, and you start seeing, when you start tying some of these videos together and some of these, it sort of seems like there was weighted towards, especially with with some players out there. I don't want to jump into some of the players, but it did seem like there was some inside baseball going on, a little bit of inside information going on, and it does have this sort of like, if it looks like a duck and smells like a duck, then it's probably going to be a duck. And this is where the fair notice, and this is where the Bill Hinman and all this other stuff's kind of coming to fruition. But I think ultimately what's happening is, I think the tide has sort of turned on the SEC. What I want to know, Jeff, I want to know where is Judge Netburn's patience? She's asked multiple times for the SEC to provide the communications, right? Not talking about the camera view stuff that they did and behind it. I'm not talking about that. Talking about the stuff she says, okay, pass it over to him, pass it over to him. Now, it certainly can't be privileged. So, but when are they going to turn it over? And what are they hiding exactly? What is so tentative that they're like, oh, we can't turn this over? So I think what's happening is behind it, is that you've got an amazing team put together over there. You got an ex-chair, Mary Jo White.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, and Crypto Eddie put that tweet out today talking about when Elizabeth Warren went after the chair, Mary Jo White, the SEC in 2016, and a vendetta is pretty wicked, right? So when you think about, now she's on Team Ripple and she's repping Team Ripple, and she knows the SEC inside and out, at least when she was before Jay Clayton came in. So this is kind of a remarkable turn of event. It's the best story out there right now. It really is, Jeff. It's like, it has all the mystery and the intrigue. It's like a James Bond thriller in a lot of ways. You got the entire world behind it, the entire globe, everybody in here who doesn't live in the United States, keen interest on it, looking at this thing, looking at poking holes in it, and it just goes to show you how brilliant not only the XRP community is, but the global crypto community is rallying about everything, and we're not taking it, Jeff. And you addressed that beautifully yesterday. So,
there's a lot there. So, a big shout out to XRP Speedboat, another Canadian friend of ours. Gary is practicing a new version of the moonwalk with the Jackson's Diamond Dip glove. That's
oh man,
that's par for the course there.
And
Chip,
Jeff, if I could, I always want to put something up. Sometimes a little fun interjection is always in order. But Sam I Am, who we've had on the show multiple times, a friend of the show, and he commented on Ben Armstrong, better known as BitBoy. Now BitBoy put out this tweet, and I like things that make me laugh. This made me laugh a lot. It said, Now it's being reported that Ripple will be widely adopted, redefining online payments, and will probably IPO after the SEC lawsuit. What have I said, XRP Army? XRP will replace SWIFT and tie the banking world together for efficiency. So BitBoy came to the party like extremely late. People had already laughed and dissembled, but he comes to the party. What has he said? He goes, it will probably IPO, and now it's being reported by who? BitBoy? Dude, we've been talking about this for the last 8 years, and BitBoy just woke up, right?
Yeah, what he's saying in this tweet though makes no sense, right? The whole thing here. So Now it's being reported that Ripple will be widely adopted, redefining online payments. So you're not redefining online to payments, or you're not redefining online payments. That's not the purpose of Ripple. The fact of the IPO after an SEC lawsuit, there was discussion of an IPO before that. However, it's not about online payments, and XRP will replace Swift. He's confusing everything. So Ripple with RippleNet is a remittance payment solution that has messaging built into it. And it is a replacement for Swift, because Swift is only a bidirectional messaging, solution for banks. That's it. It doesn't allow for settlement, doesn't allow for transaction of movement of currency. And enter in RippleNet with ODL, and you have a complete package. So XRP isn't going to replace Swift, because Swift isn't a currency. Swift is a messaging solution. So he's off base, and tie the banking world together for efficiency is RippleNet, utilizing XRP through their ODL. So everything that he said here just shows that he's confused, doesn't understand what he's talking about, and is just throwing out a bunch of words just to look for, people's eyeballs on his tweet.
Well, don't worry, because Sam took his and handed him his ass, which is fantastic. BitBoy, you take making an ass out of yourself to the next level. You're no member of the XRP army. You're a clout chaser who talks shit about XRP and people like me who have been saying this for 4 years now. F off with what I have said. Bullshit. Poser. I just love it, man. I just love, because everybody's BitBoy. And it's great that you got a maxi that's embracing, but the guy can't even do like a Google search, or he couldn't even spend about 6 minutes reviewing the Ripple website that has all the information on there. He just continues to sort of spout this nonsense, and I love it. I love when sometimes you got to take someone at task. You got to take him behind the woodshed. You got to punch him a few little times, beat him up a little bit. And he's like, F off with what I have said, BS. You're a poser. And he is kind of a poser, but is he good for the space? Hey, anybody spouting like good stuff or is promoting the space, I'm always it's his prerogative. He can do it, but he does it with such poor.
But he's wrong.
But he's wrong 99% of the time, and that doesn't help, maybe, for sure.
And I'm not saying that we're 100% right and that our opinions are always right. Maybe 99% of the time. But
99%, yeah, that's a good average,
right? But that whole statement is just packed filled with incorrect concepts.
Innuendo. It's just nonsense.
Innuendo. He doesn't understand. And hey, fine, you want to get passionate and fired up, that's good stuff. But we're talking about narratives, and so we're able to look through all of the different things that are happening and try to put some sort of an opinion together based on all of the elements, right? Not just some hyperbole that BitBoy is talking about and, throwing some stuff out there. But I'm talking about, we look at things, that are influencing all matters from a political perspective, an economic perspective, and the growth of the digital asset space. So one thing that I'm seeing here that's a commonality, Chip, and just I have to point this one out, because there's this and there's Christine Lagarde, and this reflects back to what I was talking about yesterday. But you have a lot of the brick and mortar heavy hitters, and then we're going to go back to what Brian Armstrong is talking about, a flippening in the brick and mortar space. But check this one out, right? So the Federal Reserve Chief Powell and other officials owned securities the central bank bought during COVID pandemic. So these guys are out here pointing fingers, talking about cryptocurrency, addressing, this new asset class that's growing, and they're all kind of colluding together on trying to, decide winners from losers and all these different things. One thing that they did do, the central banks were out buying up a bunch of securities, and during during this period of time, there is a clear ethics breach. Why? Because they owned securities that the Fed was buying. And they knew, based on that insider information, what was happening. Look at this. CNBC found that Powell owned municipal bonds of the same type bought by the Fed during the issue in 2020. Look at this. 2 regional Fed presidents likewise owned assets of the same type the Fed was buying as this issue was threatening the U.S. economy. The central bank's code of conduct says officials should be careful to avoid any dealings or other conduct that might convey even an appearance of conflict between their personal interests and interests of the system and public interests. These are the
amazing.
These are the guys at the top. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it just goes to show you the rules for thee, not for me. You know, it's kind of like we kind of come and go as we please. And the whole thing about the Fed that I've always had an issue. This thing rolled out in 1913, 1970. You know, the 70s come along, and then it gets taken off the gold standard. But for 1913, it's been a debt-ridden system that's just been a boat anchor around the necks of all the Americans. Let's put it that way. And when the Fed has never been audited, we don't know what their balance sheet really looks like, Jeff. This is like, we get wind of some of these little things during the pandemic. This is some of the things they did. It's the tip of the iceberg. What are they really doing behind the scenes? What kind of stuff are they really gaming? How much Bitcoin do they own? How much money do they sack into Bitcoin? Do they own 50% of Bitcoin? I mean, how steeped are they into the cryptocurrency marketplace? Are they whales that can make things move up and down? We don't know. We don't know because we've never audited the Fed. We've never taken a good look, Jeff. And, you know, it's insane that you have people like Powell and Boss Fed Eric Rosgren and, Richmond Fed President Thomas Barkin. This is rules for thee, not for me. Looking through some of that stuff. Go ahead and point some of that stuff out, Jeff.
Look, Powell held between 1.25 million and 2.5 million in municipal bonds. They were just a small portion of his total reported assets. While the bonds were purchased before 19, they were held while the Fed last year bought more than $5 billion in municipal bonds, right? And then look at this, including one from the state of Illinois purchased by his family trust in 16. So now he couldn't have forecasted back then, but there's this visual of impropriety because he held them. Now the Fed's buying them. It's going to have a direct impact on what he's holding. Boston Fed President Rosengren held between 151 and 800,000 worth of real estate that owned mortgage-backed securities. He made as many as 30 separate trades and 4 REITs. Wow. The Fed purchased almost 700 billion. And then you have this Richmond Fed president held 1.35 to 3 million in individual corporate bonds purchased before 2020. And then now the Fed last year opened a corporate bond buying facility and purchased 46 billion of those. And it just, just like, I mean, in the beginning, the goal here is that you want to avoid, potential, improprieties and conflicts of interest and all of those things. And it's like, man, I'm looking at these guys and they come out talking about stablecoin this and, Bitcoin that, and, what's going on in decentralization, in the DeFi space. And is it really decentralized? And they all come out with a little bit of commentary about what's happening. And it's like, man, now we have to question, did they have a conflict of interest in everything else now that they're trying to undermine the space? Does Elizabeth Warren have a conflict of interest?
Well, I got to say,
James Rule
XRP, man, massive support. And with that XRP support tip, man, thank you so much. XRP does rule, James. And, one of the things that I enjoy on a daily basis is interfacing with James Rule. We always pass little messages back and forth to each other and stories and stuff. And always love the fact that he was actually the one that tipped us off about the XR, the opening up a wallet, which is just amazing. So I really appreciate that. And then John Gill over here. Whoa, John, thank you for that. Biden and Armstrong are both a couple of fries short of a Happy Meal. At least Armstrong is more harmless and lucid. Yeah, that's... Which Armstrong are we talking about here? Are we talking about Armstrong from Coinbase? So what are we talking about here? We're talking about
Neil Armstrong,
BitBoy. What is BitBoy's full name? Is he an Armstrong? I
Oh.
don't know what he is. He's a nut job, but thank you for that,
Yeah,
John.
what about Stretch Armstrong?
Stretch Armstrong too. You stretch that puppy, and eventually it did break, Jeff. Eventually it
Man.
did. Kids did break those things. But Jeff, let's keep the hypocrisy train moving here. I want to show a short video, and this ties into something what you just kind of talked about a second ago here. But I want to throw this up here. And where is it? Here he goes. Here it is. So look at this. Look at this nut job right here. This is Christine Lagarde. She is in charge of the European Central Bank. She runs the bank. If you guys remember, she used to run the IMF. And apparently, I don't know if it was a promotion or they slid her over there. But check this out right here. BitBoy. Yeah. Okay. He's talking about BitBoy. Yeah, that's Armstrong. Ben Armstrong. That's who it is.
Okay. Before you play that video.
Yeah. Thank you for that, John. And appreciate that. Just wanted to go back to that. So he's saying that Biden and BitBoy basically are a couple of fries short of a Happy Meal. No doubt on that. I mean, and it's sad to say that. And who's the lesser of the two evils there? I mean, it's like debatable, really. On one hand, at least you have somebody running a successful YouTube channel that has over 1 million followers. So, and on the other hand, another guy that is on YouTube and gets more down votes than he gets up votes and can't pull an audience of 5,000 people in. So, it's maybe BitBoy's got a little bit of an edge. I don't know, potentially.
He does. He's got a big edge.
But I want to put Christine Lagarde up here. Let's put her up.
The video, is this the one that she's covering here?
Yes, it is. This is her statement.
Cryptos are not currency. Calls them highly speculative and suspicious. So it's going to be interesting to see it firsthand.
Well, geez, how weird is that the woman who runs the European Central Bank, the central bank, key word there, central, Jeff, is suspicious of freedom, choice, and decentralization and decentralized nature of cryptocurrency. So here she is. It's a short little clip, but let's listen here.
Are not currencies. Full stop.
Full stop.
Let me just hang on a second. Let me do a full stop here. Cryptos are currency.
Full stop.
Full stop. Miss Lagarde. Full stop. Okay.
Are highly speculative assets that claim their fame as currency, possibly, but they're not. They are not.
Why is that?
Why?
I think we have to distinguish between cryptos that are those highly speculative, suspicious occasionally, and high intensity in terms of energy consumption assets, but they're not a currency.
Okay, so she doesn't this. So this is about as much clarity as you're going to get from this. Let me just play a little bit again. I just got to play this again here.
Cryptos are not currencies.
Why is that?
Cryptos are highly speculative assets.
Okay, so fiat is currency, but what? She doesn't go on and tell us why it's not, Jeff.
That claim their fame as currency, possibly, but they're not. They are not. I think we have to distinguish between cryptos that are those highly speculative.
So she's now going to speculate between highly speculative cryptos and those that use power consumption. She's talking in riddles. She's talking in circles. She doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. She just has to take the official position as the person who's running the European Central Bank, and saying that it's highly speculative and blah 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 and this and that. I mean, she can't. I don't think she can have anybody from any centralized bank can have an opinion that cryptos are good. They basically threaten the very nature of these centralized banks, especially the central banks that in each country, which is a system built on debt, where you borrow one unit and now you got to take 2 units to pay back because now you have debt on that, and it's a vicious cycle, and that system is dead and it's dying. It's dead. It died a horrible death, and she has to come out and take this official position, Jeff. But what are your thoughts as to her not even making sense?
I want to know how she came out and came up to this opinion that cryptocurrency is not currency. Because there's many others that have made statements that they are, and here she said, I think we have to distinguish between cryptos that are those highly speculative, suspicious, occasionally and high intensity in terms of energy consumption assets, but they're not currency. Well, what are we distinguishing between? And, she then talks about stablecoins. she talks on the other hand, you have those stable coins that are beginning to proliferate, which some big techs are trying to promote and push along the way, which are different animal and need to be regulated, where there has to be oversight that corresponds to the business that they're actually conducting, irrespective of how they name themselves. So, how does she then go from the crypto into stablecoin? Still doesn't say anything, not in in any deep term other than full stop. That's it. That's my opinion.
Trust me.
That's it. She then talks about CBDCs. And in all that, you have the central banks who are prompted by a demand of customers to produce something that will make the central bank and central bank digital currencies fit for the century we're in, which is why we are not all looking at CBDCs.
Well, like Jeff, something to point out. If you scroll up a little bit, go back up there with your highlight there. What I always like about the word central bank digital currency is the very first word that says central, centralized garbage. It's not blockchain. It's almost as if these central banks are pretending that they're in the game. They're like, yeah, see, we need a digital version of our fiat because our fiats work so poorly in the past. And so this is what they do. It's like they pretend it's going to be blockchain related or it's crypto related. And all it is a digital representation of the same garbage we've been having to be shoved down our throats. So
it's interesting, right? As you think about what's going through her brain and how they're going to benefit and how they're going to control the narrative, how they, want to make sure that retail consumers aren't benefiting. But she says here, she explained that instead of having banknotes and cash in our pockets and our wallets, we can have exactly the same thing, but in digital form. So all of us are working on this. And certainly I was keen to push the issue, the CBDC issue, on our agenda, because I believe that we have to stand ready for that. So a minute ago, it seemed like the CBDC said, which is why we are not all looking at CBDC. Then she comes out and says exactly why she is keen to push the CBDC issue. So I thought she said we're not all. She was also asked whether the ECB, the European Central Bank's central bank digital currency, would be to the exclusion of paper currencies, or would it be side by side? She said side by side because we want customers to have their preference. If they still want to hold those banknotes and cash, fine, and it should continue to be available and around. But still, I mean, she's making all these statements, and really at the end of the day, it's really about she's keen to push the central bank digital currency on behalf of the European central bank. That's it. Full stop.
Full stop.
Right, John? Full stop.
Well, Christine Lagarde. See, the problem with the lie, Jeff, is that they're hard to keep, and they're hard to keep in here. Like when you're not being very truthful, and you have to continue to cover what you're talking about. This is the problem with the lie, because it's like you go all over the place, you talk all around, and when you own it from the heart and you own it and you say, hey, this is what I believe. But if you got to be taking those official stances because, oh, we can't have this, but the CBDC is good, but the CBDC might not be good, right?
Right, that's right. So XRP Speedboat is saying she also does a bloodletting every time she buys a new crypto cold wall.
Oh, that's awesome. Wait, put that up again. Let me just read that one more time. That is a fantastic blood. She does a bloodletting every time she buys a new crypto cold wall. The Speedboat, that's phenomenal, man. Thank you for that. I needed that. We need to get a video. We need to get a video of Christine Lagarde doing the happy dance regarding the article of the XRP wallets going from 20 down to 10. She's like woo!
She's doing her happy dance.
Can you imagine that, Jeff? Christine Lagarde. You remember how everybody propped her up when she was at the IMF, and everyone's like, the IMF. I'm like, the IMF is a charity organization, okay? It doesn't do anything unless it's like a government. The government doesn't have any money unless it takes it from you. They don't do anything. They don't create anything. They don't have a product. They're not out there selling anything. They're just selling lies, deceit, propaganda. That's what they do. And so when Christine Lagarde was at the IMF, she was like, oh, Christine Lagarde. And of course, we know that she famously met with Brad Garlinghouse and the crew, and all the central bankers were there with Brad Garlinghouse. They were having a big throwdown, whatever they were doing. But the bottom line, then she got the promotion to go over to, and there's some other stuff going on with the IMF right now that's kind of creepy too, and the World Bank. like all of these organizations are about as corrupt as they come. And they're all propping themselves up as, look at us, the elites. We set the gold standard. And, you know, there's some other controversy, I think, being passed around last week at the World Bank. And it's just like never ends. And then you get something like, you know, El Salvador that says, hey, we want to make Bitcoin the national, you know, a currency, right? We want to make it actual recognized currency. They're like, and then the World Bank's like, oh, we're not going to help you there, man. That's really not of our league. We don't really, you know, we're here to help, but no, there's a limit, and we don't believe in the whole crypto world. And so it's just all biased, Jeff, when it comes down to it.
We need to take that Christine Lagarde and just get that full stop, like John Gill, Christine Lagarde, full stop.
Full stop.
Crypto is awesome.
Full stop, Jeff.
Stop.
Well, why? Because the highly speculative nature of an asset, and she has to get. She's like, then this is like when Kennedy, you know, when Senator Kennedy was asking, you know, Gary Gensler is like, hey, are you our daddy? He's like, no, I'm not our daddy. And he's like, why do you act like it? Why do you inject your personal opinion and everything? So she had to get the power consumption in there, because Bitcoin takes a lot of power. Who cares? Is it your power? What are you worried about? I mean, is it at the end of the day, who cares? Bitcoin is a revolution. Bitcoin created everything we have right now. And she's worried about the power consumption. Please, Jeff. Please.
Yeah. She's concerned about the power consumption, and too many people over there in that part of the world and others. But waste from one Bitcoin transaction is like binning 2 iPhones. It's like taking the iPhones and throwing them in the garbage. And that's it. A single Bitcoin transaction generates the same amount of electronic waste as throwing 2 iPhones in the bin, according to a new analysis by economists from the Dutch Central Bank and MIT. Okay, wonderful. That's great. And I still say, so what? Well, you know, to the Bitcoin. I still say, so what, to Christine Lagarde. And I say, you know, to that point, you know, there's a gathering of the United Nations soon. And all of these people are flying in on private jets. There was that Met function, wherever it was, and you have Hollywood celebrities from all over the place flying in. Guess what? On their private jets. How much fuel is consumed when they do that? I was just looking up, you know, I watched NASCAR yesterday. I watched Indy today. I was watching Formula One last week. Man,
I watched football.
All sorts of crazy races going on. And I was thinking about it. I said, you know, how much gas is consumed in an average NASCAR race? And it's somewhere between, like, I saw one report from last year. It was about 6,000 gallons of gas per race, right? So, and that's a race that people like watching racing. But then you could say, if you add up all the racing in the world, you know, how much energy and gas is it consuming on a regular basis, on an annual basis? You could say, well, that amount of gas could have powered, you know, I mean, 6,000 gallons, right? How many people, how many tanks does 6,000 gallons fill up? That was, you know, 3 hours of racing, you know, and then you extrapolate accordingly. So you can make the claim on anything, you know, and they're just focusing on this one. And, you know, I just think it's interesting. They're going to keep, you know, flipping that narrative. So,
yeah. So big shout out from Rob XRP, who in his own right is a master of, especially his Patreon and stuff he drops on the internet. He says, we're currently listening to 2 masters of live streaming. Thank you, guys. That's really tall praise, but guys, thank you, because, you know, I would reach right over here, do one of these, because you guys get it. You're right. You hang with us. You guys generate the show with your amazing comments, and you're the smartest people in crypto. Quite honestly, that's how it works. And, you know, we're just a mirror, a lot of what the things you're thinking, that you're putting down, the things that you're thinking. So thank you for that, Rob. Really appreciate that.
And you know what Christine Lagarde has to say about that one, Chip?
Full stop. Full stop. Full stop. You know, it's like when you want to make your point, you just go like, it's not a currency. Full stop. And you're like, okay, let's wait for why it's not. And she never really gets into that. But that's what happens when you look. I get it. It's the official position. You know, it's like, you know, if you've ever been tasked with doing this, like you have to go toe the company line. You don't necessarily agree with it, but you got to get up there and you got to be like, you know, the company's doing this now. And someone asks you a question about it, and you're like, No, the company's definitely not doing that. The company, and deep down inside, you're like, yeah, it's dumb and it's BS. You don't really want to follow it, but you got to toe the company line. In this case, you're a central banker. You're not going to entertain. You're not going to be like, crypto's the greatest thing ever. You're not going to volunteer to be the firing squad and the one that gets shot at. You're not going to be that person. It's like, hey, can you shoot some bullets at me? No, that's not going to be how it works, Jeff.
Right. And so, we're talking about the gold standard and all of this stuff and Bitcoin and digital assets and, they're replacing a fiat currency and all these great things. So what I find is interesting, I found this article 100 years ago, Henry Ford proposed energy currency to replace gold. How amazing is that, right? So Bitcoin appears to meet the definition of an energy-backed currency proposed by the famed American inventor during the interbellum period. Now, look, right there. New York, whatever the New York Post, New York Times, Sunday, December, whatever. Ford, 1921, December 4th, 1921. Ford would replace gold with energy currency and stop wars. Declares
Wow.
if government will give him Muscle Shoals plant, he can demonstrate success of plan to substitute natural wealth as basis of world's money, right? Henry Ford and Thomas Edison arrived here today to inspect the Muscle Shoals nitrate plant, which the Detroit automobile manufacturer proposes to take over from the government. And almost immediately, Mr. Ford declared the purpose of his vast new project. It is not to make money or primarily, I don't know, they cut that out. Bankers who today control the bulk of the world's gold, no matter to what country they as individuals claim allegiance. They all play the same game to keep the gold they have in their own hands and to get just as much more as possible. Nothing's changed in 100 years, Chip.
Well, this is 8 years after the formation of the Federal Reserve, right? So that came into being in 1913, and then you got Ford, which floats a brilliant idea, and the reason behind it makes what a nice find that is, Jeff.
This is awesome. These guys put an amazing article together. I mean, it's like, holy cow. He intended to do this by building the world's greatest power plant and creating a new currency system based on units of power.
And Tesla was involved with that because, Tesla back then, was doing a lot of this stuff as well. But, this is what happens this is why we go to the innovator mind. This is what the innovation is with digital assets, and people are just thinking of everything. And you got one of the greatest minds back then, Henry Ford. Did he invent the car? He didn't invent the car, but he invented the production line that was able to mass produce it. You can go over to Germany, you can find, the electric motor, you can find a lot of the pieces and parts that were done first, but it was the mindset of someone like a Henry Ford that said, here's how we are going to mass produce them, and created the assembly line. And that was what made it possible for everyone. So just much like the Gutenberg printing press, where people would scribe, books back in the day by hand, and nobody read because there were no books to read. And so the Gutenberg printing press mass produced the ability to have books and for people to learn and for people to read. And again, this is why innovation is so important, Jeff, to protect. And this is where the SEC is going to get its ass handed to it. And
that's right. And Chip, look at this statement. I mean, this embodies everything that we're fighting for right now. So he was a visionary, right? Henry Ford, a visionary in terms of, and there's some other issues that you might have with Henry Ford in terms of some of the support that he gave to certain groups during World War II. Correct. However, under the energy currency system, the standard would be a certain amount of energy exerted for 1 hour that would be equal to $1. It's the guys, I mean, he's thinking about how can you do this? How can you capture it? It's simply a case of thinking and calculating in terms different from those laid down to us by the international banking group, to which we have grown so accustomed that we think there's no other desirable standard. And look what he says here, though. The specifics around currency values will be worked out when Congress cares to hear about it. And you know what?
They still don't care to hear about it, Jeff.
They still don't care to hear about it. We're still in the exact same position. I mean, we got the Token Taxonomy Act. Jeff, they don't want to hear about it. They don't care.
Yeah. 1921, 2021. That's 100 years ago. Congress still doesn't give a shit I mean, it's incredible, right? I mean, Congress, 100 years later, Congress can't be bothered, but you know what they can do? They can go to $30,000 plate dinners with dresses that say tax the rich. This is how they like to spend their time, being an elite and rules for thee, but not for me. That's kind of like where they all come from. And Warren Davidson put out this amazing tweet yesterday that said, just pass a token taxonomy. Let's get busy. It addresses all of the areas and the problems. Let's do something in a nonpartisan fashion. You put it out there. Pass the token taxonomy.
They need to do it. Look at this. The essential evil of gold in its relation to war is the fact that it can be controlled. Break the control and you stop the war. What are we talking about? Decentralization is freedom. So now, how crazy is it to think about? We don't know who Satoshi is. This idea backtracks, Chip. I'm not saying there's a connection, but it backtracks 100 years ago. This isn't some secret document, that someone dredged up. And this is an art. This is an idea. This is an inventor, an innovator from 100 years ago comes up with this idea of money, energy generated in power. And he's talking about government control. And he's talking about the ongoing wars and all the things that are involved in it. And how do you break the cycle? You break the cycle, by decentralization. And it's amazing. So is there a possibility out there? One of the greatest innovators of our time, Henry Ford, because of what you were talking about, what he did with automotive production, he created the assembly line for factories. Is there a possibility that somewhere in this whole grand scheme of things that somehow the idea is involved in this, in Bitcoin?
Yeah.
And then in the other assets? I don't know.
Well, one of the things too that it gets into later in the article, it talks about 71 Nixon taking us off the gold standard because of speculators. You see, Jeff, like all what goes around comes around. There's speculation. You had someone like, Christine Lagarde. It's speculative. So what? What's speculative? Everything in life is speculative until it's not. And so in 1971, it said it's going to be temporary. Well, what ended up happening in the 70s is, in the US at least, is that you had this massive inflation. Now people were excited because all of a sudden, it used to take a one working, parent home to make things work. But now both parents had to get out there and go to work. Why? Because, although the houses were worth more money, they cost more money. And as prices were rising, and then gas prices were rising, and then inflation got out of control, and now you had to have two parents working in the mid to late 70s just to make ends meet. And although they were making more than they were making in the early 70s, but the money bought less and less, and it was just a ruse because we never returned to the gold standard. And to me, the only way forward is to crush the federal banks, the central banks worldwide. And this is what's in process. And the last ones to know will be people like Christine Lagarde at this European Central Bank. She'll be the last one to know because it's going to happen without her approval. Full stop, Jeff.
Full stop.
Without her approval, Jeff.
Full stop.
It's going to be a full stop there when it goes down to it, man.
Full stop. XRP, full stop. So Jacob Harrison is saying not just electric, blue gas is going to shake things up in the EV sector. Also has to do with the mining crypto while driving. It's about to get a hell of a lot more interesting. I think, Jacob brings up some really interesting points here. I mean, energy overall, there's a battle right now being waged over energy. Battery power has been around, and battery powered cars have been around since the beginning of cars. They just didn't have enough battery power to power the cars long term, which is, I find interesting. But right now, I think there is a power, battle that's going to be waged. It's the next stage in the evolution of technology. You can't have governments force the outcome. The outcome is going to naturally occur. But, to this point, I think, Jacob brings up a solid thing: mining crypto while driving, the interconnectivity of the infrastructure the power infrastructure and how things move and migrate. I think cars are going to be interesting, logistics, and it's going to be pretty crazy.
And Apex Crypto says crypto gives the people an out against the infinite money printing of our central banks. They will keep printing because they have to. Eventually, when we wake up and inflation's 20%, people go to crypto, but that's already started to happen anyway. You already start seeing people. I mean, one of the greatest things that I've witnessed that I think is just phenomenal is that people that, and Jeff has brought this up before, people that never were interested in investing are interested in cryptocurrency. It's exciting. It's solving problems. You know what I mean? It's not a company that, the stock market's a whole different animal, right? Stock market, if you look at the balance sheet and if you look at the profit and loss statement, and if you look at the debt they're carrying, all this stuff, you go like, well, how are they paying dividends? They're losing money hand over fist. So this is a really great observation, Apex. That it does give people an out against the infinite printing of our central banks. It's a spot on statement right there. And the central banks know it. They know it. Listen, they're playing the game. They have to get up there and beat the chest and full stops and all this stuff, but they know what they're doing.
Full stop, Chip.
They know what they're doing.
So to that point, to follow up on what Apex was saying, they can just print into oblivion. This is, something I talked about yesterday is accountability. You put everything on the blockchain. This is why the brick and mortars and some of these institutions are resisting, because it brings transparency at all levels. We have to stop thinking about it's, the government, dictating and controlling the people, because the governments are for the people and by the people. And we need transparency and action at the government level. You apply blockchain to their level, and all of a sudden we have transparency of expenditures and everything else that's going on. But to the point where right now they can just print into oblivion, which has moved us so far to the problems. Right now you have political wranglings, right? So you have there's this debt ceiling, the government potential shutdown, the spending out of control. They have a $6 trillion budget they're going to try to pass. There's no way to pay for it. But right now there's government issues with budget issues. And so McConnell's saying, hey, you know what? We're done. We're not going to raise the debt ceiling. So in this article, they're basically saying, hey, they can sidestep McConnell's refusal to pay by minting $1 trillion platinum coin. I'm like, what? So in theory, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen could order up a $1 trillion platinum coin, mint it, and deposit it at the Federal Reserve. Now, it's platinum. It's not worth $1 trillion, but they're just going to say, hey, it's worth $1 trillion. Oh, look, we have $1 trillion now.
Again, but this is exactly why what has absolutely gone off the rails and what's wrong with everything, because the rules don't apply, right? So this is bankrupting, future generations, our kids, this is where we're talking about. And the whole idea that and they've always, Jeff, everybody's raised the debt ceiling. They're going to raise it because they want money in their coffers, because they got to go back and pass out the goodies to their state, right? This is why they're going to do it. And they are going to raise the debt ceiling. That's not going to change. Now, especially the GOP, they're a bunch of feckless worms who talk a big game. But if you want to see who did more for freedom and choice, someone called Nicki Minaj. She did more in a couple of tweets and a couple of statements to blast the elites out there and to show them who's who. She went out there and she said, hey, can we ask questions? Is this allowed? Do we have to go with the official narrative? And to me, that did more than anything of the feckless GOP is ever going to do, because they are a bunch of whiny, crybaby losers.
To be fair, the people, we can't rely on government representatives to do everything. So I think that's
to do nothing.
Well, the thing is, we have to, they're there to do our bidding, and do the right thing. But when the media is going to shut down their voice and they're not going to allow them to portray the narrative, the media is controlling it. You have self-serving members in Congress on both, from the GOP and the Democrats, obviously. But it takes individuals to speak out. So if Nicki Minaj, what she did, I 100% agree. was extremely powerful because she put everybody on notice. But that was critical, but she had to do it. If she didn't do it, the representatives, the political representatives are not going to do it. And too many of them are self-serving, so we
But
have to
Jeff,
hold
but Jeff, here's the thing.
at all levels.
But what I want to say is, what I want to say is someone like a Nicki Minaj who speaks out like that, the immense amount of courage it takes to put your foot down and say, hey, I'm making a stand. I'm doing what I believe in. I'm following my heart, and I'm following what I know and what my family's been through, to go ahead and make that kind of a stand. The immense amount of courage. And one of the things she said, where I absolutely 100% believe this, she said, there's a lot of other stars too who want to say this, but they do not. Yep. So they don't possess the level of courage. And you know what? And then, so the other thing she took a lot of guff for was that the fact that she published 2 reporters' phone numbers, but they were shaking her down. They were shaking her family members down. They were being disingenuous with their proposal. And she said, hey, well, here you go. Everybody can call them up and give them their peace of mind too. And this is brilliant because there's usually when you get like someone who's a pop star or somebody else, look, to stand up and give their own opinion, man, it was a powerful thing. And it was fun to watch because if you remember, do you remember that she interviewed Biden when he was running for president? Do you remember that? There was an official interview out there that she interviewed him. And then, people have the freedom to change their mind, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it. But again, it took an immense amount of courage. And I applaud her for doing that, because everybody else was just like, I'm not saying anything. I'm just standing back. And she was like, she's full force. I mean, that's kind of her nature. But you know what? God bless her, man.
It was awesome, just tuning in, multiple, and everybody attacked her. Everybody, she had interactions with Fauci, with all of the different media hounds, with Boris Johnson, just across the board. It was crazy. It was crazy to see the interactions, and that's good stuff. Who else has been outspoken lately in this space? I know we're coming up on it, but kind of connecting all of these things together, right? It comes back to Brian
Armstrong, yeah.
Man, now Brian Armstrong, obviously from Coinbase, and he's focused here on Bitcoin. I believe as he's looking at Bitcoin, we're talking about crypto in general, right? But here he's saying, Brian Armstrong unveils Bitcoin and crypto predictions, says billionaire Bitcoin flippening is coming. And his point with all of this is that the flippening is against the brick and mortars. All the other chaos, all these things that we're seeing, all this pushback, all this resistance is coming from the brick and mortars that don't want to see the power, that the hands of power change. So I think this is, really critical. Look at this. He believes a billionaire Bitcoin flippening is coming that will boost science, tech, and charitable causes in the years ahead. And I agree with him, Chip. I think
absolutely,
it's going to be major. There's a lot of things happening, right here that we're going to see come from crypto.
Absolutely. And Sophie says, night, all you crypto geniuses. I like that. Crypto geniuses. That is the on the chain gang here. We do broadcast live 6 days a week, Sunday night through Thursday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And then Jeff is at it solo, sitting in the chair, doing his famous rants at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Saturday mornings. Jeff, anything else? I think we left it all on the table tonight. We threw it all out there. And another great show, man. So what else to say?
For those of you who are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notifier. All these things do help. Hit the thumbs up. And also, we did invite the Bad Crypto guys on. Not sure what happened technically. Everything was it was perfect set up. Hopefully we'll have them back on. We'll look forward to it. With that, Chip, just a shout out to everyone that supported tonight. You guys are awesome. Everyone that shows up 6 days a week with us, you guys are amazing. You guys show up 1 day a week, still amazing. We love our supporters You guys are awesome. And with that, Chip, we're going to be back here same
Tomorrow
time,
night.
8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow night, exclusively right here.
On the chain. Guys, we'll see you on the next one. Chip and Jeff out.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.